heard me today, but the time made it prohibitive. And so I think it would be extraordinary if we could create conversations like this where the future could be present. So my 7-year-old son wanted to be here today because he did not understand when there has not been a significant breach or failure because of the trees for 200 years, why would the government clear cut the trees? This is from the mouth of a babe. And he was in a panic that I wanted to come here without him. His bedtime is 7:30. So my husband had to explain to him that mommy would be here to represent him so that the government would know, the agencies would know that it's his future that we're talking about. And my child is symbolic of the children of, I'm sure, all of you in the communities that are touched by what we're talking about here. And as so many people have said before, once these trees are cut, they're gone. These are trees that have been there for an extraordinary amount of time. And when, again, the risk is not there, when we don't have the evidence that there's been a breach or failure because of them for 200 years, why are we doing this? Because of a liability concern. And so I think when our youth are telling us that what we're doing is extraordinarily damaging to their future and to what this community represents, I think that it's important for us to listen. And I actually come from PR, so I've been an executive vice president, a senior vice president, and a vice president at several different global agencies. And one way of doing PR is to communicate, right, and to push the communication out. Another way is to engage stakeholders and to actually create a robust communication where there's an ability to integrate perspectives in plans. And so far what I've heard tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity, right? In many ways, maybe you didn't even have to do this, so I appreciate this first step, but I think there's an opportunity for there to be more symbiosis in this relationship moving forward. I've heard that this is something that is, this brochure, this write-up that has been created is very extensive, and it covers, we're talking about decades for the future, and there's the opportunity, if it is a living document, why can that living document not have living people participate from the community on an ongoing basis? So something that would be wonderful, and it would be great if you could consider. It would be fantastic if the communication, the PR process moving forward, actually involved ambassadors from the community. So in the PR world, that's actually something that is a best practice that happens, where you have ambassadors from the community that work with whatever your brand is. And in this case, the brand is this government body, right? And so including different members of the community can make it such a better process. We heard tonight that even the science doesn't have to be as limiting or linearly perceived as we're thinking about it in this moment. There may be other ways that engineers themselves and other communities are approaching this that won't mean that we have to clear cut the trees, that don't mean that we create a devastating impact for future generations. So what I'd like to ask for my 7-year-old Logan is it possible for you to have a more robust communication process so that as you put together not only this particular piece of information and take into consideration the feedback that's been given over the last 2 days, there's a chance not only for you to get our feedback and reflect that, but that we can actually have a more participatory process over the next decades and hopefully hundreds of years of the existence of this canal.
100% yes. Thank you. Because we can talk more about what that looks like and how you get that together.
How can we find out more what that gas looks like?
So chapter 9 of the guidebook, that several pages is very sparse. So one of the action items that I've taken away is to put more meat on those bones to talk about what are the channels, when will we reach out to communities around a project specifically,
for you after the meeting, but also I would love for us to think about proactively, how can we have another instance so the community could be able to weigh in again and understand what are those changes that are made. So it is something that speaks to the community and the community truly feels heard. Because right now, what I'm hearing from being in this room is that the community doesn't feel like their feedback is being heard. And I think that'll go a long way for that relationship to be stronger and for that PR to be better.
I think one thing that's happened that's been really apparent as we've gotten much closer